Welcome to the mindless musings of friends while two of us play Stardew Valley.
I missed the beginning of this, but we're talking about the Belko experiment.
So, Joe, if that experiment happened at your place, how do you think you'd fare?
I work with children, for crying out loud.
Easy targets.
Yeah? Could you bring yourself to do it, buddy?
No!
No.
Fuck no!
No.
Surely there's at
I,
least one or two other adults there.
Look, you know what I would do?
Against
Uh,
the
if,
others?
I
No.
was, if I was still working at my place from last year with like over thousands of people in one big building, okay? If I heard that voice on the tannoy, I'd have been like, you know what? This is my 2 weeks' notice.
I think it's a bit late for two.
I know, but
Yeah, because you're already locked in. No, I think I'm with Phil when he said before that if, someone does something like that, just sit down and say, no, there's no fucking way I'm going to play your game. You can fucking kill me because obviously I'm going to die anyway, but I'm not going to play your goddamn game.
okay, I gotta say, okay, this was a good movie. This was a thought-provoking good movie. However, I don't get the villain's motivation. I don't get the agenda of the experiment.
It was simply for science.
Yeah,
But if it was simply for science, why are they conducting it on hundreds of other places at the same time? You saw the TV
Because,
screens.
okay, when you do an experiment, one, you need a large
A palette,
sample group.
essentially. You need like a big
You
petri
need
dish.
a really large sample group to work from. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything close to enough information. Okay, there's, how many people in the country of England? What, say
Yeah.
20 million?
Pretty sure it's more than that.
Okay, let's say 100 million people in the UK. Okay, 100 million people. And you want to know how the average British person will react to no
What?
more tea.
Why don't you? Well, okay. What was the point of the job
Here's
application?
what I'm saying. You want to find out how the average person will react to no more tea. Do you simply remove the tea from the store shelves in one tiny little village with like 60 people living there? Or do you remove the tea from all the store shelves in the entire country?
But this,
Or
okay, the entire thing
that's
is
actually going to
rhetorical.
be difficult. You would do it with at least a larger group of, say, the entire population of London. The thing is, you can't do an experiment with a super tiny size. If you do it with a tiny size, then you have to do it repeatedly so that you wind up with a large group that got experimented on.
This is an experiment that should never have been attempted in the first place. This is
Well,
such a
no shit.
rhetorical and an empty kind of like thing. You get nothing out of it except people are people. They're just going to panic like crazy in this situation. Joe, watching this movie made me feel like the Reeve thing in Shinra, if F7 abridged. We're just going to, dump a section of the city on another section of the city to kill 5 people if possible. You know what I mean?
No, that's needlessly wasting resources.
That's needlessly wasting resources. They had a platoon of people with guns outside. They constructed a skyscraper office building and hired 90-something people at the beginning of the movie. And the ones that didn't have explosive bombs in the back of their heads were allowed to go home.
These people running the experiment, Phil, they clearly have no value for human life. They clearly view humans as guinea pigs. And I don't know what the experiment is for. It's left ambiguous, which I kind of like. Because, science can very well be scary. Like, this is clearly in some way to test human nature. And possibly ways to control human nature, would be my guess.
Basically, it seems like the real question is what makes a survivor survive?
But okay. Did you watch
Because the questions
Okay.
were, how did you feel? What made you make these choices? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, fuck you. I'm blowing your asses off. Okay?
Exactly. But you missed the point where even the villain of this movie, who's like literally dying, coughing up blood, tries to apply to his morality after the situation that he's just been put in. No.
That was just him being desperate.
Like, that's just him being a moron. Like, how ignorant do you have to be to the chaos that you've just allowed to happen? I don't get it. Like, it tells a super serious and dark story, and I can see, like, the impetus for most, like, the stuff. I just don't get the reasoning behind the experiment. It's for the sake of it simply happening. It's just not acceptable for me.
Studying how quickly society collapsed under pressure would be my guess.
That's a valid guess. I mean, come on.
To be fair, it
Mengele
doesn't
did.
matter why they're doing it if you're the one stuck in the situation.
Wait, if that's the entire point of the movie is to study how long it takes for society to crumble, why did he start doing it every 2 hours anyway in the movie and say you're gonna get exploded?
To amp up the pressure. They're
I
amping
don't-
up the pressure.
I don't
Because
think it was
he's
about
got a
seeing how long
schedule
it
to
takes.
keep to, and he wants to go home.
I
Yeah.
don't think it was about seeing how long it takes before society crumbles.
Yeah, I don't think
Because
it was about
otherwise
that.
they would have just locked him in there and left it be. No, it was more about basically what makes a survivor a survivor. What all can they do to people to make them kill? To go against their morals.
Okay, do you remember? Oh God, do you remember the movie that I like from like a year or so that I made us watch, The Relic?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so The Relic has a very, very subtle theme of that movie. Okay, so this movie was about the breakdown of society, okay? Where everybody just turns on each other. In The Relic, there's a monster in the building everybody needs to get out, okay? And if you remember in that movie, there's 3 different parties. There's the 2 that go off and try to solve the mystery of like the big monster in the building, killing them all one by one, okay? That's just gambling. That's just luck. Those 2 characters, including Tom Sizemore's character who has the bullet that never went off in the first place, that's just luck. They're gambling against all odds. They're gambling against fate, okay? The characters that stay near the entrance to the door hoping it would open, the museum, they're herding together like animals. They're going to get picked off one by one, aren't they? Right? The others that go through the sewers and try to escape, they're trying to escape, but they're still doing the same herd mentality. They're trying to survive. And
It's the
okay,
fight or flight response.
Exactly.
Are you predator or are you prey?
and those people that try and escape, 1 or 2 of them do get picked off by the monster in the movie, but they escape.
The strong will naturally prey on the weak.
No, the point of
Well,
the
those
movie.
who think survive.
Exactly. The point is the survival instinct in the characters who didn't just lay about in front of the front door to the museum in that movie, waiting for it to open up. Those guys in the front door, they got killed, every single last one of them, because they were easy pickings for the damn thing. Whereas the herd mentality of just like run for your life. It was pretty good.
I wonder something. Was New Girl part of the experiment's equation? Like,
Huh.
put somebody in the experiment that nobody knew about.
I mean, that's probably the purpose of the character, isn't it? But
Well, I don't know, because, like, I like that character. I kind of hate how that character dies. But
it gave me like oh god, what's the remake of Internal Affairs called? The one that got an award, the Oscar, for like no reason. Scorsese.
no
When
clue
Leo,
on that.
when Leo DiCaprio walks out of the elevator.
When Leo walks out
Huh?
of the elevator.
Okay, what was it called? The Scorsese crime movie that's basically just a remake of Internal Affairs.
I have no idea.
Have you never seen this?
Buddy. Nope. I'm not the biggest Leo fan, buddy. I honestly think Django Unchained is his best movie.
Okay, never mind.
I'm not a Leo fan at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. If you've ever seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, you will actually see him.
Oh, I know he's a good actor.
He's not a bad actor. I'm sick of seeing him. If I did see him, I'd like to throw him off the Titanic rather than watch it.
I just. He's got enough talent. I just
We'll float
never
longer.
thought he was that good looking.
Wolf of Wall Street's fun just for the one scene with Matthew McConaughey.
You should jack off more often. What?
Like, I've never seen that before. Like, Matthew McConaughey
okay.
just appears very briefly in one movie, and he steals the entire show for me.
That was the movie I was thinking of, The Departed.
Never seen it.
Okay. God, it's not that good.
I might have heard of it.
It's a strange one. It got an Oscar, and it was basically just a remake of Internal Affairs for the West, and because it's Scorsese is attached to it as a director, everybody thought it was like the best thing ever. I thought it was terrible. Like, I thought it had a really interesting story, which I already knew anyway because I watched the original. And then the last half an hour of that movie is basically what Tarantino does at the end of every single one of his movies.
Splatterfest.
Exactly.
I was going to say Bloodbath, but yeah.
His most recent movie is the one that I think is the blatant case in that. Like, you have a story about two people like living in Hollywood in, God, when was it the 60s or 70s, Phil?
Oh, you're about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
When did Sharon
The
Tate die?
60s,
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, but
so-
1968.
They're trying to do the Sharon Tate thing though, rather than anything else. Just like frame it against that. At the same time, like the stuntman rises too.
but you have a drama set around that, and then out of nowhere, in the last 15 minutes, he throws that in just because he's Tarantino.
You know
and he
the
can get away with it.
You know the popular theory that's right around now with Tarantino, because he does the same thing with Hateful Eight and all of his other movies like Inglourious and such like that. It's the fact that Tarantino, a lot of people still think to this day the most mature movie he has ever made is like Jackie Brown,
I agree.
because it's like actually a love drama. You know what I mean? It's like chasing Amy out of the View Askew universe.
Yeah.
Where it's got like
I
its
agree.
serious love story being told, and it's actually has a really interesting twist to it. The finale isn't just some massive, blown out, exaggerated action spectacle. It's just two characters talking to each other, and it's really subtle and nice. And you sat,
Samuel L. Jackson swearing like a sailor.
yeah, and you sat there.
Because he's not swearing like Sailor. He's swearing like Samuel L. Jackson.
I think he's sworn more in that movie than anything else I've seen him in. Like, it's like a swear every minute with him.
Thomas
It's
Simpson
crazy.
swears, yeah. The way these checks get committed, Homer, it's almost like I'm getting money for free, you dirty bastard.
When I think of that movie, I just think of the beginning when he sets up Chris Tucker. Like, it's so blatant. Like, I can't believe Tucker fell for that crap.
I can't believe we just got Dutch in that movie then.
Mangoes are
And
for
it's
mangoes.
almost like people have to do multiple different things to earn
True,
money.
yeah. No, it's just shocking because you can tell it's him. You know what I mean? If it was the guy playing Arthur or the guy playing like John
I mean,
Marston, you'd be
Maybe
like,
if you make an effort to pay attention to such things instead of just enjoying the fucking movie.
but it's the attention to detail what caught it in the first place.
Yeah. We pay attention to details. That's how we found out Michael Rucker was in there.
Paid
That's how
too much attention to detail.
It was a
Sean
thought-provoking movie.
Gunn.
Like, it's a thought-provoking movie. I mean, you're gonna get that.
I don't think obsessing over what actor plays who is what makes it a thought-provoking movie.
I think it is because it tells you the kind of actor they want for the character
Yeah.
and what kind of character
Not
that is.
necessarily.
It's paying attention to the
That's
finer
you
details.
pigeonholing people into different roles.
Yeah, you're wrong.
I'm absolutely correct. People can play different roles. People have variety. Alright,
depends
maybe
on
not
the
everyone.
actor.
But still,
Yeah, I
Christopher
do.
Walken
one
only played
great
Christopher Walken.
example of that is Bryan Cranston. A lot of people
Cranston's
can't see him as anything other than Hal from Malcolm in the Middle.
Okay, this is a circular
However-
argument. Yeah, this is a circular argument because Bryan Cranston was hired to play the main character of that. They're not going to go halfway through this movie and then decide Dutch's character is going to be the lead character. You know what I mean? They spent. I agree what you're saying. I totally agree what you're saying. The problem is that there's an allotted amount of time that we have to a movie, and screen time is dedicated to the characters who are our main characters. Otherwise, it's just like if a miscellaneous character just overtook everybody else's priority in screen time, you'd be like, "What the hell's going on?" You'd be like really confused.
You get that every now and then, like in Psycho, where we have a female protagonist at the beginning of the movie, and she dies after like 20 minutes to a half hour into the film.
Yeah, she's the setup victim to Norman's rampage.
And the way that movie is set up, you think she's going to be the main character.
That's a great way. That's a great use of false protagonist, though. That. It's like the situation being framed is actually the horrifying thing rather than her as a character. This thing you're supposed to be taking advantage of and watching.
I had
I know
no idea
peop-
this was.
I was just gonna say, like, I know people originally in like 1960s when they watched Psycho were like genuinely shocked. They thought she was gonna be the lead character.
Hmm.
Yeah, Janet Leigh. And then
Mother.
Didn't people have the same issue with, I believe, Scream? With assuming someone was going to be the main character.
Oh, not Neve Campbell. It was gonna be oh god, the girl from E.T. at the beginning. Yeah.
I don't think
Drew
it goes.
Barrymore.
I don't
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
goes on as long though with Scream. Like it's not like
No, but
20
it was the
minutes to a half
entire
hour.
opening thing, and just like people assumed that, oh, she's going to be the main character, especially because she's such a big name, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Pigeonholed
Scream-
her into that fucking role.
Scream's like the
However,
first 5 minutes. I mean,
Absolutely not the case. And people were shocked about it. It's like, maybe just watch the movie and decide for yourself as it goes on.
You know,
know what they
I'm,
say about assumptions. Sorry.
Hey, I've been thinking like for a while now, like, and I think it's pretty much on everybody's mind, really. Like, I wonder if FF16 is going to do the same thing.
what?
Well, but FF16 has 2 main characters. Like, I wonder if they're going to do the false protagonist thing. Yep,
Has a
yep.
video game ever had a false protagonist?
I'm sure they has.
Yeah, I'm sure there has been.
12
Oh, Kingdom Hearts
kind
2.
of did.
MGS2,
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts, right?
Kingdom
Good call,
Hearts
Karen.
and MGS2 as well. Yeah.
Sons of Liberty.
MGS2 is fantastic. Fantastic.
Final Fantasy 12 kind of did because you started off as
Yeah, Rex.
Mm-hmm.
and
12 also.
That's a good point, that Carol.
Why are
you
these all
thought
even
that,
titles?
and you thought that this was who you're playing as because you're going through the tutorial, and then no, there's more tutorial with his asshole brother.
That Roxas one is the best because I actually genuinely like Roxas as well. I like him better than Sora.
Yeah.
He's like a much more interesting character.
Mm.
No, he's a better design, is what I'm saying as well. I mean, visually, he's just so much better. But
I remember them advertising that game, like you may not even want Sora back, and they weren't wrong.
3 hours in, you were like, shit. Here we go. Here comes the rest of the 70-hour story, I guess.
Now the Raiden thing just pissed me off. In comparison,
Why? They kept that secret for ages. They really did.
Yeah, well, maybe you should play it for the story and not just obsess over the main character. Metal
it,
Gear Solid 2 was fine. Doesn't matter if
the
Snake was the main
protagonist is a
character.
pretty important part of the story, Kieran.
Well, that's why they got Raiden, because it was a completely fresh perspective. You're right. The protagonist is totally like an important part of the story. But what makes the protagonist, a lot of people don't realize this ever, and it annoys the crap out of me, is that the protagonist has to react to things, hence their sincere development as a person, right?
Not necessarily. You can make a self-insert main character like Joker
Yeah,
and
and those are
P5. Those are shit, but you're the ones who usually defend the self-insert character, Kieran. Because remember we were all talking about the other day how we hope for Persona 6 they kind of step away from that, make the protagonist of P6 more, of a person
Different
for the
kind
next
of
game.
story.
I would rather P6's protagonist be female. That would have made a bit difference.
Or at least make it optional to be female. Like I mean, you're right. I think it should just to change it up.
Yeah,
But
if you get another guy being the main character, it's like there's another part for the
The
cost.
thing
You've
is,
done it.
even if that did happen, it would make so little difference.
I honestly think
What's that? Romance the guys instead of the gals. Oh,
the
wow.
Wait, Kieran, you're against lesbian relationships?
No, you don't
I'm
get
not
it.
saying.
No, you
Oh,
don't.
you
You
say
don't
that,
get it.
Joe? Are you against gay relationships? Because they're
You don't
not
get it.
up, son of.
Kanji best boy. We've been saying it for
Kanji
years.
best boy.
So
Yeah, exactly.
now we can prove it in the
I'm
next
just
game. So.
and considering Japan's record with homosexuality, it would clearly just be that way.
I mean,
Persona 3 Portable is the good example of that one.
I mean,
Because that's basically how that worked out.
the way the gay characters were portrayed, those two random people that hit on Ryuji and P5, like that was just like, why? Why is that there?
Because it was that district.
But no, but that's
Where do
that's
you-
not
okay.
funny.
You remember where you go for the photographer's confidant? It's a transsexual bar. Like that's just the red light district. It's just that.
That's not funny though. I don't know.
No, and I agree. Like that's not funny, but it was literally framed in the red light district, so they get what they get, right? What is unacceptable is the fact that they go to Hawaii. They turn up there anyway.
Oh yeah, they bring those guys back. I forgot.
Yeah, they go to Hawaii, and like they're still there, chasing Ryuji around.
If anything, I think they should kind of make it like, Mass Effect. Like,
No.
Shepard's kind of an
Shepard's
insert character, but he's also has a personality.
Oh,
The
so
idea behind a self-insert character is that you can choose options. You can sort of make all that much, but giving them that personality also pigeonholes them somewhat down a certain route.
there's a cutoff point for Joe, I feel. Like, I don't know if it's going to be like, wake up Chrono, at the beginning of your Chrono Trigger, like giving them a name, Joe. What do you think? Does that make a difference for you?
A self-insert main character?
No, but a character that has a name, so therefore you have an agenda now with this character. This is his life. You're making his decisions, Like, what's the cutoff point? Is he just an actual character? Is that what satisfies you, or,
Here's your thing around. You don't want a Tidus type situation where nobody says your main character's name. You don't want
Keep going.
He was such a great person. I really liked him. You don't want shit like that. You got to give your character, if he's a self-insert character, some type of name. So the Shepard idea works in this because you give the character a nickname.
Very generic name.
You can change his or her first name to be whatever, but you got to give the character a nickname so everybody
Then
doesn't.
what's the point of giving them the first name? If they're
There's
never
no
going to be
point.
called by it,
There
then what's
is
the
no
fucking point?
point.
Because the
there
same
is no-
thing happened with 10, and that was a detriment to the story.
Exactly.
No, but he's right in the case of like Mass Effect, but they do actually give you a John or Jane Shepard. Like the name is going to be used regardless. I was thinking like P5 has Joker. They call you Joker throughout the entire thing.
Do they call you it though when you're in the real world? I don't remember. I know they do it when you're in the metaverse.
Yeah, they do it in the real world too.
Because I remember a lot of scenes with, we have to help this guy. Yeah, he needs us. And crap like that. They
I
do.
actually think they diminished that kind of like really down. I think it was Ryuji who was saying like this guy the most. Because he's your closest, friend essentially, the bull monkey.
But that's my thing. You gotta give your protagonist some type of name.
No.
No.
Like
No.
Geralt
No.
is... Hey, Geralt in The Witcher 3 is just basically a Geralt. He's like that character.
Yeah.
But you do have a lot of freedom in his decision making. That takes a considerable amount of effort, though.
And you know what? As much as I didn't like Cyberpunk, at least when it came to V, you can choose V's real name or whatever, but everybody still calls V by his or her nickname, V.
I was gonna say you don't get a lot of choice in that. It's like
So,
the choices don't even matter in the first half.
No.
So
No, they don't. But you know what? At least they don't just call V him or her 90% of the time. Because
Or they could have just not had you name the character and just created a character. There's a difference between a self-insert character and then a lazily made character just for the sake of people feeling that they can customize it or whatever.
So you're against the self-insert as a whole, or are you just against the name as a whole? Which one?
because you have words.
If you're gonna go self-insert, go full self-insert or don't fucking bother.
But if you go self-insert and you end up in like a Tidus type situation, are you okay with that? Where nobody
Well,
addresses your main
that's
character's
not
name?
Self-insert.
No, but it is in
It's
the
not a
sense of the name.
self-insert character. Yeah, the name was a bad idea. They should have just had him be a character. I mean, look at it this way. With Final Fantasy VII, you can name all those characters, but at this point, you know them as Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith. It would feel weird going through that story at this point, naming them different things, because you know that's not their names. That's not their character.
I used to do that all the time as a kid, by the way. When I played,
As a kid, sure.
FF 7, 8, and 9. I renamed all of the characters
Yeah,
off
but
of my
as a kid,
friends.
that's different.
I could never do that with 8 or 9. Especially 7, I may have done that originally as like a a young thing, but never did it eventually.
Like I was always the protagonist, so I was always your Cloud, or your Zidane, or your Squall. I had my one friend that was named after the Black Mage. He was Vivi in 9. I think JP. I'm trying to think the other ones.
I did one time name Ketshi Traitor Scum.
Traitor scum, don't betray us. Okie dokie, boy.
Carol, you should
To
have
be
named him
fair,
Judas.
that totally worked out for the best because since Shinra got there first, they were the ones who got horrifically murdered at the entrance to the temple.
Carol,
And
you'd
you
never
survived.
betray us, traitor scum. Would you?
Who would have ever
And,
expected
I-
Judas to be a spy? Sorry, Carol.
And I renamed Griever like Fluffy one time.
That's the stupid one. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
That's the one I could never get around. Is it have some kind of personal attachment to the main character, Griever? That's why Ultimecia has it. That's why it's used in the plot.
Part of that is because you named it, you remember the name.
And so
Whereas
it
if
gets-
it's just briefly brought up, you'll get to the end of the game, it's like, what the fuck's this?
Like I always get a feeling looking back on 8, like it's full of experiments and some really half thought out kind of like starts of plot threads that just kind of go nowhere. I mean, that's an interesting one because you can see the setup for it. The problem is the payoff is just negligible. It's like barely anything.
I think if 8 had more time, it could be worked into something a bit better, but I still think 8, there's some fun times to be had with that game.
Like when Renoa just turns up out of nowhere and she's like, "Hey, what's the name of Squall's Ring?" I'm like, "Gives a shit." It's like a time traveling sorceress trying to murder us all, lady. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's like, who gives a shit? We're in the middle of this fucking garden trying to be fucking blown up here.
Like nobody is like invading us though. Who gives a crap? The hot dogs are apparently filled with cocaine.
Yeah. 8 wasn't weird enough for me.
8 was a Nomura on LSD watching Beverly Hills.
8 was plenty weird.
Not when compared to 7 and 9.
Eh,
9 is a French cartoon.
7 may be because it's, it's a game about you being a fucking terrorist for a good bit of it.
Which is like super interesting because like what JRPGs have the stones to do that these days?
Seriously. 9, however, is just kind of generic fantasy. The story in 9 is kind of meh.
I liked it.
It's not that it's not enjoyable, but it doesn't do anything new. It doesn't do anything different. It's not any sort of boundary pushing in any way, but that's not to say it's bad.
I kind of like the fact that the summons played a very big role in the plot. Not to the extent of 10, but you could see that that's what they were heading for with 9.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the case in a lot of games where they just sort of summon things.
I'm just saying,
I read
they were
originally-
scary in that game.
They've got kind of a big part in most of the Final Fantasy series in general.
I read originally
I mean, 6 with the whole Esper thing. I mean,
Go
that's
on,
a
Phil,
huge
buddy.
plot point. 7, they are
7
kind of
is kind of
materia.
7,
so
they really weren't
vaguely
plot
net-
relevant, though.
Not massively so, but they're definitely fairly related.
Like 7's summons, they just feel like
8 with GFs. I mean, you can't say that's not related.
that's plot irrelevant more than anything else. that one.
It's pretty relevant.
But I was gonna say like I read originally 9 in like an interview with Sakaguchi. It was considered his last ever work because you got to remember this was like 9's production was done alongside and just shortly after the Spirits Within movie made its like debut, and they lost a ton of money because of that movie. They
Yeah,
didn't
that
do
movie
too
was
well.
terrible.
So the Gooch kind of got kicked in place by his own CEO and such like that. And they said like this is going to be in the last one before we get rid of you out of the company. So he wanted to do 9 originally as like a throwback to the beginnings of the series, like one of the original games.
Hence
the
why
style
it's
of-
kind of generic fantasy.
Yeah.